Hi there, Julia Neiman here with Donovan Dreyer and our guest today, Ken Kors. Hi, Ken.
Hi there.
So
Hey, Kenny.
Ken is the founder of Explore Momentum and On Course Marketing. His Your Momentum Now community provides speakers, experts, and small businesses with the resources and connections to create and launch their client-attracting training programs. Ken continues to consult with companies worldwide in various industries, including speaking, live events, real estate, and nutritional supplements. Ken has been featured in front of audiences at more than 150 events in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom, and has worked on over 10 multi-million-dollar program launches. He's been on the stage with speaking legends such as Les Brown, Mark Victor Hansen, Kevin Harrington, Nancy Matthews, and many more. But most of all, Ken is passionate about helping experts take their message to the world. And in this case, he's passionate about helping you to become the expert.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Hi, Ken. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So,
Yeah,
all
welcome,
right.
Ken. So I was just going to throw out there this expert idea. You're going to help people be experts. You know, I find with the older generation who came across all this technology for the possibilities of creating careers first,
Yeah.
kind of slow. We're kind of like old dogs trying to learn new tricks. And but I think part of it's fear too. So why don't you tell us if somebody's like already hit that wall and they've maybe got something they want to share with the world, but they just aren't getting it to happen. So tell us about becoming an expert that's able to actually make it happen and
Sure.
what your thoughts are on the barriers.
Well, sure. And it's funny because the word seems to change even every couple of years. I've been in information marketing and speaker marketing, program marketing for most of my career. And you went from just having courses to being an expert to being a speaker, back to being an expert. I like the word expert because it's my belief that everybody has many different areas of expertise. So there are things that you do every single day that you probably take for granted, regardless of whether it's technology or not, that you are an expert in. And for me, there's a big difference between expertise and what most people think expertise is, which is mastery. Being an expert in something is something that you've done repetitively, and then even better, it's something that you get paid to do consistently. So you've either been trained to do it, someone taught you to do it, you've just developed it into a business. But most people get tripped up on the expert term, like you said, because they think, oh, well, I have to be a master at this. I have to have put in my 10,000 hours and done this for 10 years and know things that other people don't know. And the reality is just through the benefit of having the expertise and the experience that you have, that gives you a different perspective on how you do what you do every day. So regardless, before you even get into technology, how you're going to deliver programs, how you're going to teach what you're going to teach, I just invite you to take a good look at what you do every day and ask yourself, what are the things that you could pluck out of that day and teach someone else? And 9 times out of 10, you're probably already teaching somebody that thing. You're either training them or you have it as a service in your business. You just don't have the program for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. And, and you can teach anything. That's the thing. It's like, I heard a story once about this piano teacher. He wanted to move to the Bahamas and get a house there, but he thought, well, there's not enough people on the Bahama Island that I want to live on to be students. How would I make a living?
Right.
And then he discovered you could get a camera and teach on the internet, and you could just point the camera down at the keyboard and show people what keys to hit. And he built a $1 million business teaching piano worldwide from his new home on the Bahamas.
Right. And that's the best part about the technology these days is that I always hold it up as the example. It's like everybody's walking around with the production studio in their pocket. I mean, and even with some cheap accessories you can get for $5 or $10, you can get a nice microphone. You can get a little tripod like the one I have right here. I always have my accessories. So you just put this right on the tripod and you can create the type of video that even 10 years ago would have cost you tens of thousands of dollars to create. To get that on tape. Now you can do it right on your phone, record right to any platform, whether it's YouTube or anything else, and have stuff up there that you can start telling people about right away.
That's exactly right. And most of our young people are already connected on Instagram and Snapchat. I mean, so they've got tools that could take them far in place already.
Right. And so the differentiator when we talk about the products or the programs is saying that most of us are used to branding ourselves or talking about ourselves. So if you spend a lot of time on social media, especially our younger folks who are on Snapchat or you're on Instagram, for the most part, what you're doing without knowing you're doing it is you're creating a personal brand. So people know you for certain things. They know you for your hobbies. They know you for your humor. They know you for what you talk about or what you don't talk about. They know you for your group of friends. And so the only difference between that and having a business is that at some point in a business, there's going to be a crossover from them knowing you for what you do and who you work with and all those things to the how phase of how you do what you do or how you deliver the product or service you deliver. So it's actually a pretty easy distinction. You have to do all the same things that you would be doing anyway, and that for the most part, you probably already do for free or for fun. I mean, that's how I got into this. I did it because I love technology. I love to play with new stuff. And for me, it was just a matter of figuring out at first how I could promote my music. And so building websites so that I could put music up. And this was in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was in high school. So I was trying to figure out how to do that. And then from there, it was just something that like you mentioned, where some people are hesitant to jump in and try new things because they're coming at it from the perspective of, oh, there's this huge barrier. For me, I just took the perspective of, I want to play with the technology for the sake of playing with the technology. I want to know what it does. I want to know how it works. Now, that's not everybody. And it shouldn't be, because then we would all be online marketing experts, which then I wouldn't have a business. But beyond that, it's that, especially for all of you out there who are younger, I mean, that's a huge opportunity for you to connect with people who want to know how to do what you do or who want to learn how to do what you do.
Yeah. So talk to us about product creation. Like how do you, so you either have a service business, or we've talked with somebody that his business was taking on people on whitewater rafting trips.
Sure.
We have the online academy. So what do you need to think about when you're thinking about developing a product for whatever your business is?
Sure. So let's use the whitewater rafting example. I love using the real example of that. And so just to step back for a minute, think about what it takes to tell people you have a whitewater rafting business. Let's just talk about, you're going to take people on whitewater rafting tours. So you might produce a flyer, you might go to some networking events, you might put up a little website, you might create some videos of you out, on the raft, probably not as often, maybe GoPro videos, but you're out on the raft, you're showing off what it is. And so for the most part, you're doing this thing where you're trying to promote the service by showing all the things that happen around the service. So there's two layers that are happening in every business, especially service businesses. So our whitewater rafting guy, while he's doing whitewater rafting, he's also leveraging the skills that he's built over years and years and years to be able to do that safely, to take people on the tours, to guide people through that process. And when you become really good at something, you become an expert at something, you kind of forget all the time that you spent it took you to learn that thing. You just go, oh, well, I've always done it this way, or I've always hitched up the boat this way, or I've always had people get on this way, without really stopping to go, wow, there's a process here that I've developed that's unique to the way that I do it. Because I guarantee when you start thinking about it, you'll realize there's a way that you do things that other people don't do things, or they would do things different or teach different. So you do what you do every day, and then you can teach what you do every day. So to start, for anybody that's intimidated by, oh, I got to come up with a great idea, or I got to figure out the marketing, or I got to figure out the technology, it's just a matter of stopping and going, all right, what are the things I'm already doing that I could create lessons out of, or that I could start teaching with? And for the most part, that's why I held up my phone. Starting with your phone, or starting with the technology that's around, is all you need. These days, for the most part, most cameras and cell phones and laptops are pretty professional grade. There's just a few little things that you need to do. And especially with the cell phone, you can walk around while you're doing certain things and doing certain processes in whatever it is you do. So while you're setting up for your whitewater rafting trip, you could be teaching other people who want to do the same thing, who may want to have a whitewater rafting business, or who may want to be able to, and it's another way, again, to promote your company, because people who are considering you will now see, wow, he's really willing to teach me how he does what he does and get me involved in that process. So the starting point should be that simple, and it's important not to get too complicated with it.
Yeah, I like that. And just, you know, we have in business, we have this concept called KISS IT, which is keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
And really that's good. I love that. Some coaches, I have a coach, you know, pay him thousands of dollars to get business advice, and he does this little Facebook Live things right from the beach, and he's walking around, and they're not perfect and they don't look professional, but you're getting a sense of who the real person is.
Yeah.
And
I think people want that more too. I think people want authenticity more these days than they really want huge polish and production. And that doesn't mean there's not a time and place for it, but the authenticity helps. People feel like they know you.
Yeah, I agree with that. So so what more? What's next? So let's
talk about the next big barrier then, because the next big barrier is the technology. And that's what Donovan had brought up, saying, all right, now we've got to start to consider all of the technical pieces that go into this. And for the most part, you can do this almost entirely for free these days. And, you know, the big tools that you have in your tool belt, obviously the most important one is really YouTube. And so what most people don't realize about videos on YouTube, if you're just starting off, is first you can record right to YouTube. YouTube actually has an editor that's built right into it if you want to use it, even to the point where YouTube has little intro videos and stock footage and stuff that you can use to create little intros to videos. And then the other thing that you should know about YouTube is YouTube has this ability to make videos not necessarily private, where you need a password or anything to view them, although it does that, but it has this little feature that's called unlisted, which means the video is only available where you post the link, or the video is only available where you put that video, if you put it on the website or something. So for most people, that's the starting point. If you're creating stuff with your phone, or you're creating stuff on your laptop and you need somewhere to put it, for the most part, that's where you start. And I know many people who actually have programs where they don't even have a website for them. Basically what they do is they record the program and they just email the people each week with where the new lesson is and where to go get it. And people can comment right on the YouTube video or do it that way. And so you can almost bypass the technology these days because of how simple some of these platforms are to use. Now, long-term, obviously, and this is what keeps a lot of businesses out of this space, when you want to host it yourself and you want to start building your own products and your own platform, that's when you really have decisions to make. But for most people who are not teaching for that reason, which I think that's the biggest thing that happens, they say, I just don't want to deal with all that stuff. I don't want to hire somebody. I don't want to get a videographer. I don't want to write all this out. Like, if I could just show up and teach, that'd be perfect. And then I leave and it's all done. So starting at that point is the easiest way to start. Just saying, you know, come up with what it is specifically we want to teach. So going back to our whitewater rafting guy, he might teach how to run a whitewater rafting business, or how to set up your first whitewater rafting tour, or the things that I've learned being in whitewater rafting for years and years. And although you might not think at the start that there are people that want to learn that, first of all, think of the fact that you went through all that you went through to learn that expertise and to do what you're doing. And the fact that there will be audiences for those things of people who are just like you, or who aren't where you are, who need that training and need that experience. So don't let the technology be a barrier is the biggest thing. And consider that from the start. Go ahead.
Well, Ken, you're actually helping us out. So tell us, like, let's get real with it. So Julia and I are, you know, here, you know, as a couple of the older dogs, we were not, and I was not in high school in the late 90s and early 2000s. Right. Julia might have been, but but anyway, so like we look at the barriers, and then like how do you make those decisions? So
right.
How do you like help somebody like us out to say, okay, I know what they need, and
Sure.
Without maybe, you know, again having that curse of the expert kick in, when do you kind of know, okay, this is what this person needs versus this is the other option?
Well,
How do you make those?
it was simple. It was simple when you guys brought it to me, and you basically said the same thing I think everybody says when they want a product or a program. You said, we just want to teach. We want to go out. We want to do the interviews. Exactly what I just described was exactly where we started in this aspect. And so I'll walk you exactly through my process of how I do this. So the first thing is that I do an interview, which is exactly what we did, where I say, all right, tell me a little bit about what you plan to teach so that I can just understand what it is and what it was about. And I got that impression. And of course, I immediately wanted to be on board, which is why I'm doing this interview. And I'm passionate about this because when I was doing this, even though it's fairly recent, I think of kids, within the last 10 to 15 years, they're light years ahead of where I was. And I was pretty immersed in technology then. And most of them are light years ahead of where I'm at. But even beyond that, saying, all right, I wanted to understand what it is that you want to teach. And this didn't exist when I was in the late 90s or 2000s. There was nowhere to go to get these types of products or programs. There was really no online video. You had websites, there was a little bit of video, but it wasn't really a thing until much later than that. So you said the same thing. And so then once I know, okay, this is what you want to teach, you had this vision of an academy where you said we're going to go through various lessons. There's going to be a curriculum we're going to be teaching. I said, all right, that's something that we're basically building. I imagine the same process as you would imagine building a school, where you say, all right, if I were going to open a physical school, I need the classroom, and I need the places where students meet, the commons area where people meet, and I need areas where they can go ask questions of either the teachers or an administrator if they don't understand that. So I'm essentially building the same structure in the online space. I'm saying, all right, we need the classrooms. We need places for people to go have conversations. If they need to go and talk to that teacher offline, or they need to talk to an administrator, whoever it is, they go to that. And then they also need to know what their schedule is and how to get there. They might need, support throughout the process. So the same concept is what I'm applying to this model. I'm just saying it's a school in the same way that you would go to class every day. It's a school. So then when we make technology considerations, I just have to say, how are you going to promote this thing? How are you going to tell people about it? And so obviously there were 2 or 3 really big ways that you guys brought up when you were talking about it. The first being partnerships. You were going to have, your friends, your family, your colleagues. They're going to be the ones who help tell people about this academy and course you're putting together. So obviously that would added a caveat of, we got to be able to understand who sent who. So if Julia sent somebody to the academy, I want to know it came from her. And if you sent somebody, then I want to know it came from you, or if your friend, or however that works. So we needed a system to track that, which is one of the systems we're putting in place. And then we needed a system, as I mentioned, to be the classroom, which is basically just our website. And we're going to leverage technology like YouTube and what we talked about for what we're doing. And then finally, we need something that controls what class you're in at what time, because in general, you don't want to start at module 1 and then jump all the way to module 10, or jump all the way to the end of the year. So that's the only other thing that we have in there. And in the technical sense, that's called a membership site, or that's called something that controls what walks you through the educational process. And there are thousands of different ways that you can develop that from the beginning. For me, I make the choice, again, primarily based off of how are we going to promote it? And then from there, how do we want it to look, or how do we want it to behave? So same as a physical school, an online school has to do the exact same things.
Man, I really love how you put that, because I think one of the big missions, for both Julia and I, is to help people realize, like, there is an option besides math, English, science, and social studies. There are options that are going to prepare you for 2020, not 1920. And we can do that. Like, we've got the ability to have a real focused classroom that is accessible anywhere, as it should be. I think a lot of the old dogs are really struggling to say we should switch up that model. And, the old ways are still there, and I think we need them for many different careers that are traditional. For now, at least. I don't know how many of those are going to keep existing forever and ever.
Exactly.
Man, for you to explain it just like putting together a school is just perfect.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing about online that I often find to be so interesting, because people imagine it to be so different. They say, oh, well, and it's really, that's marketing. It's that online was positioned as being this totally new thing, and it's totally innovative, and it's totally different. Well, what's happened over time as the internet has become more mature is that it really has become like everything else. It's the same as the real world. It operates in the same real world rules. There may have been a period of time that it was easy enough to just throw up a product and a million people would show up just because you had it. But now it really functions the same as you would build anything else. So if you were going to create a school in the real world and have students come to it, the process of doing that would be very similar to what you're going to create in the online world. Same with the whitewater rafting business, same with if you're selling products, same as with your helping speakers. All of those are the same thing, and you have to approach it the same way that you would approach you'd approach any other business. Now, again, the advantage that those of you who are younger out there have is that the technology has been a part of your life throughout your entire life. Yeah. So you came up in it, you're familiar with it, you understand how it works, you have an advantage there that starts you above a lot of people who won't even get to that space because they're intimidated by the technology or they don't want to deal with it. And so, that is a huge benefit. And I guarantee for most of you out there watching this, you're already doing this. I know people, and a lot of times people kind of scoff at it, but I know people who make thousands of dollars a month streaming video games, who that's what they do and that's their hobby and people pay them to do it. So if that's what your skills are and that's what you're good at, it can be anything. As you mentioned, skateboards, whitewater rafting, people that create their own television shows or their own YouTube channels that are more like comedy or drama, all those things. It doesn't have to be something specific. It's the same as any other model these days.
Yeah, what I was thinking too, it's like it's perfect if somebody says, okay, my dream for my life is I want to travel, but I don't have money to travel. But that's what I want to do. So how do you start a business around that? You become maybe a travel writer. Or you do a video blog as you travel, and then you get all these travel companies to sponsor you, and that pays for your travel.
Exactly correct.
Right? And all you need for that is your phone. And everybody, you just take your phone and point it and do a little video where you are and talk into it and show the food you're eating, and you've got a business.
Yep. And it's more common for this generation, I think, and especially the generation even after me, to where, that laptop lifestyle is really going to become the norm. And in fact, that's why you're seeing things like, co-working spaces or shared offices, or, if you go to your local Starbucks any day these days, you'll see tons of people there working and doing homework and all that. The office is everywhere now, and it doesn't matter where you are. And I think that's only going to continue to become more of the case, which means you've really got to start considering, as you think about what do you want your career to be or what do you want your business to be, that lifestyle is a huge piece of it. Do you want to travel? If so, you got to make sure that's built into what you do. Or do you want to be known as someone that's highly skilled or be the expert, like what I'm talking about? And I love that. Then that's one direction. Or, do you want to use your online business or your online programs or product to drive to a service, like you mentioned, like you talked about coaches and trainers? In a lot of those cases, you obviously need that to happen. You need to have the products and services so people even are aware that you're a coach or that you have these services to offer. So it all just is a matter of how you want to live your life. And for the most part, as Donovan mentioned, the way that most people have gone out and applied for a job and gotten a job in their town or in the nearest city and all those things has changed entirely already. And I think it will be unrecognizable within the next 5 to 10 years. It'll be that different.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things too is if you've got the older dogs that need to learn these new tricks, I think one of the inbuilt ideas right now for any kid out there is there's the idea of the flipped classroom where they give you the material at home and then you go discuss at school. But the real flipped classroom is like our kids are the ones that should be teaching some of the grown-ups, or,
Right.
If people have a business, they might be able to rely on somebody 18 to 24 to just step in ready to help them out in a big way. And they might have the funds there to support this budding entrepreneur. They just need the know-how.
Right. Well, and what you described, I'm actually a big fan of saying, I don't think it's necessary. Of course, I'm a big advocate of learning and education, but I also think if you're someone that you don't like technology and you're not going to be interested and you're not going to do it, you absolutely shouldn't spend all your time trying to learn it. It's the absolute worst way. And it's actually why so many people never get their products done. And this is, I describe this process when I work with a consulting client of, I know this journey. So because I've met thousands of people over the years who go through it. They say, I have a great idea for something I want to teach people, or I want to train people. And they say, all right, I want to build it. And these days, the biggest thing is I either want a website or I want an app. An app is like the biggest thing these days. Then they go out and they find a marketing team or an expert who says, great, I can build that app, I can build that website for you, etc. They have a great conversation. The person gets really excited. Then they get an email from that person with the scope of work or the bill, and the bill is $25,000 or somewhere in that range. And they go, wait, I think this is a good idea, but I don't know if it's that good of an idea, and I don't really know what they're going to be doing for me, and I don't know if that makes sense. So they get really scared off by the expert's price. And then they go, all right, well, if, like you mentioned, if my 18-year-old can do this, or a 24-year-old I know can do this, I certainly can do it. And so then they go, all right, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to learn how to do it on my own. And so they'll go out and they'll buy one of the many different technologies you can use to build websites, to get their email system set up, to host their video, to do all that stuff. And then they'll put themselves right firmly in the middle of the stuff that they can't stand doing, which is dealing with the technology. And even if they do get it done, which will take way more time than if they had hired that expert team, then it won't ever be to the quality that it would have been had they gotten an expert to do it. It will be kind of a halfway there, and they'll never be really happy with it. And then eventually what ends up happening for the most part, and this is most people, not all people, is that they abandon it entirely. They go, oh, that was a great idea, but it just didn't make sense. It was too expensive to do, et cetera, et cetera. And so in that story is a ton of opportunity. In that story is a ton of opportunity for how you structure your business, how you think about it. And it's also the trap. It's the reason why so many people don't do this. It's why I was so passionate about saying, for me, creating a program and doing that site and all the stuff that you talked about is something that's second nature to me. It's something that, for the most part, there's work involved with it, but it's not challenging work because I've been doing it so long. And if you're watching this, there's something that you're doing that's not challenging. You're fixing someone's computer. You're helping teach someone to do something. You're, mowing lawns in the neighborhood. You're walking dogs. I mean, whatever it is, there's a skill that you're doing, and there's probably many of them that there's opportunities there for you to say, you know what, if I just partnered up with this person, we work together. If we thought like a business owner instead of thinking like, I can't do it or I'm too afraid or any of those things, it shifts your perspective towards the whole thing. And for me, there are things that I know I'm not going to do. Like I will never do business accounting. And it's not even that I'm bad at math or that I don't like it. I do just fine. It's just tedious and arduous and I don't like it and I'm not good at it. And it's something that I know, just like the people I talk to, if they were planting themselves and producing product and building websites all day, they'd be miserable with their life. They'd spend, there was a stat I heard once that most people spend 95% of their time doing things they don't want to spend 5% of their time doing the things that they do want. I really think everybody watching this should reverse that and find the ways to do 95% of what you do want and 5% of what you don't want. And look at how you can partner, how you can team up, or how you can work with other people to get to that ratio.
How do you take maybe that 5% and match that up? So you've talked about, these many opportunities that are out there that kind of were like packed in with everything that you just shared us. What would you say is kind of like one of those golden nuggets that everybody that's, coming up in the next generation could really hone in and get a good sense of, like, practically, I can do this starting today?
Sure. Well, there's one thing I love that I've heard a lot over the years, and I brought it up at the beginning of this call, but it's the difference between expertise and mastery. I bring this up all the time, and most of the time, the reason people don't do products outside of all the barriers in the tech and all the stuff we brought up is just because they don't think that they're enough of an expert, or they don't think that they know enough, or they don't think that, normally it's because you're looking sideways at somebody and you're saying, oh, well, but Donovan knows way more about education than me, which is probably true. I have an educational platform and I probably look at him and go, oh, he knows so much about that. There's no way that I could do that, or there's no way I could teach the way that he would teach or the way that he would do. And so the most important thing is to just really understand that, yes, you have a unique voice in what you do. I mean, and you have it these days in every platform, both personally and professionally, to use to your advantage. Not just in what you talk about or what you teach. I almost think these days that is, interestingly enough, becoming less and less relevant. There are a million experts who talk about the stuff that I talk about, and there are a million experts who talk about the things that you guys talk about. The difference is how we bring ourselves into that equation, how we bring our personalities, our experience, our expertise into doing what we do. And so not really going, I'm the absolute best, I know everything there is to know about everything, but really going, all right, I have unique skills, I have unique knowledge, and I have unique experience. And those three things combined are what's going to create the magic of saying it's not just about what you teach, but it's about how you do what you do. It's about who you are and how all of that comes into whatever it is you develop. So don't back off your personality. Don't back off of if you have a weird sense of humor like I do, like the freaky bear that's behind me, which is super professional, by the way. But, you know, don't back off the things that are true to you because they're true to you.
Yeah, I really like that. It's like, just be who you are.
Yeah.
You know, that's really what people want. And if you just be who you are, then you don't have to work so hard to hold some persona that you're trying to put out there. Just be who you are. And, and people prefer that. I mean, it helps people trust you faster.
Oh, absolutely.
That's one of the tougher things though, Ken. So so when you find that people are more comfortable kind of fitting in our world and not wanting to stand out, you know, for the sake of like maybe getting rejected, how do they do that? How do you find somebody that's younger to jump over that hurdle and embrace who they are?
Sure. Well, there's two things. The first is practice. It's that none of us get the luxury of not having to be a little uncomfortable sometimes. I think everybody has to do things at any point in your life, whether you're 10 years old or, you know, I use the example of, you know, my girlfriend's daughter is 5 years old and she spends a lot of time during the day doing things she does not want to do. She does not want to clean her room. She does not want to go outside at times when we're doing things that excite her, but you have to. And when you're 10 and when you're 15 or when you're 20 or when you're 50, there's always going to be a little bit of that. So you just have to practice being happy and grateful for the life you have, because sometimes that's just the way it is. But then the second piece, and arguably the most important one, is who you surround yourself with. So if you're even taking the time to watch this video and to consider it and not going, oh, what do these people know about my life and what I'm talking about and those types of things, that's already telling you that you want to be surrounded by a group of people who are going to support you in what you do. And not only support you, but you might have people around you that are great teammates. So let me give an example. Exactly what you described with the technology. I used to work for a workshop company that specialized in similar topics to what you're talking about how to start a business and how to sell and how to overcome that fear and rejection and all of those things. And again, the number one thing we were doing in that was practice, practice, practice. You just had to do it over and over and over until it just felt more comfortable. And some people would be miserable, and some people would leave the room, and some people would cry, and some people would go, and then they'd come back and practice until it felt natural. But in this event, we had a kid that was 15 years old, and he thought it was really kind of a silly thing. He'd been brought there by his parents. He wasn't super excited about the event. But if you're sitting in that room, doesn't matter whether you're, 8 or 80, you had to do this practice. You had to talk to people. You had to network. You had to try to sell something. And so he made up some goofy package that he literally just made up on the spot. He's like, I'll look at your social media accounts and I will just make sure that everything is set up correct, that your images are set up correct, your profile is correct. He called it like his social media review or social media audit. And he talked about it like that, like, oh, okay, I'll sell you this, blah, blah. And that was the attitude. And so immediately as he was sitting with people, they were like, great, we'd love to have you do that. And he was charging like $10 for it. And so after he probably made, 5 or 6 of these sales at $10, he went, now I have $60. And now this isn't so silly anymore. I've actually got $60. And there's a moment it becomes real. And so he upped his game and he's like, all right, well, maybe we'll manage the site for you and we'll charge $100. And so over the course of this event, it grew and grew and grew. And by the end of this event, here's what this 15-year-old kid had done. He had called kids he went to school with that had skills in different areas than he had. So he considered, he'd said, I'm the social media guy. I know Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter, and I'll look at those things. But I don't know video, and people want video. But he had a friend who does video. So he's like, great, he called his friend, could you do some video for me? Then he called his other person, could you do some graphics for me? Could you do some intros for me? So by the end of this event, he's selling $8,000 packages to people, and people are saying yes to it all day long. They're going, oh, great, you're going to take care of all of it. And he's gone out and he's recruited his buddies that he plays video games with and all that stuff. And he leaves this workshop with something like $20,000 in revenue in this workshop. And so it's who you surround yourself with, people that buy into your idea. So not only was he in an environment with people that supported his idea and said, you know what, that's a great idea. And yeah, that's actually something I really need. But then he went back to his community and said, there are people who can do things that I can't do. There are people that I know that do video. There are people that I know that create these programs. Exactly what you guys did when you engaged me. You said, oh, Ken knows how to do that. Then I'm going to engage him. So it's getting around people with the right mindset and with the right focus, who are willing to work with you and collaborate with you and build something together. Does that make sense?
It makes a ton of sense. And you hit on something really important without using the word, but I want to point out that you're talking about leverage.
Yes.
Leverage. Okay. And even when you were talking about, as we do, you know this from my book, right? We talk about if you babysit, if you dog sit or pet sit in general, you have a business. And so you want to look always at how can you leverage that? What can you add? What product or service can you add to what you're already doing that will make it more financially viable for you to keep on in business? And you'll, be able to fund the lifestyle that you want.
Exactly.
So this is a perfect example of that. And, even if you're just mowing your neighbor's lawn, if you add services like, okay, well, my dad has a weed eater, I'm going to borrow the weed eater, and I can go over there and weed do the weed eater and trim the hedges for you and and so you can add more money to that. Each thing that you add, you can charge more money. So that was a perfect example of this young kid. And I've actually been to one of those workshops that you're referencing and saw how that worked. And it was pretty amazing to watch that overnight. It was a 2-day thing where you did this for 2 days in a row. And I left with money. I put together a package and I left with money. It was one of the best learning experiences. And it was uncomfortable at first, but we all have to step up and you have to do things. And so leveraging is a really important skill. It's really important.
And it's, again, for those of you that are actually taking the time to go through these interviews and you're listening to people that none of these people that are doing these interviews started off as the ultimate expert in their field. I certainly didn't. And these things that I know, I started off as a kid that liked to build websites, and I started working for $10 an hour for a local community service agency because I was passionate about helping kids and families that were in distress. And for me, it was all about the people that I surrounded myself with. And you really make those choices every single day. Are the people that are around you supporting you in what you do? And are they saying, you know what, you're really good at this, or you really know your stuff, or you should continue down that path? And for me, had I not had people that continued to encourage me and said, great, it's awesome you know how to do this, you should keep doing that, or you should learn more about it, then I definitely wouldn't be where I am right now. And I think that when you put it out there, and this is why I care so much about that expert thing. People say, oh, I don't want to be an expert. I don't like it. I resist it, whatever. But there's something about making the statement of, I'm an expert in this thing. I've worked, many, many hours, been trained on it. I have a skill that a lot of people don't have. When you put it out there, it attracts people. When you just use that word of, I am an expert in this thing. And again, because I use that term, you guys were attracted to me. Other customers are attracted to me. People go, oh, he's the guy. He does that stuff, or he helps speakers, or he helps people build, online courses in classrooms. And it's only because I say it. And no one's ever going to come along and go, all right, today is the day that you get the official title. You are that business, or you are that person. It's just consistently being around people that are in a good conversation, are in the right conversation. And at this point, when it's about talking about a business, or it's talking about your life, this is something that if you make this decision now, and it's hard to see, but even a year or 2 years from now, when you are living a life you want to, you're traveling the way you want to, you're with the people you want, or you're working as much or as little as you want to, it makes an enormous difference. And it's hard to see at this point if you're just starting, but it changes very quickly once you say, this is who I am.
Yeah. Well, wait, Donovan, 1 second. I just wanted to add, one of my coaches would say that's like putting your stake in the ground.
Yeah.
Put your stake in the ground and then just go for it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think that dovetails well with what I wanted to say. So we had the beginning part, getting past that first step. Now we got the stake in the ground. Mm-hmm. I'm super curious about going from $10 for sale to that $8,000 and
right.
packaging a whole bunch of things up. Sure. So tell us about the bookend. How do you finish that thing off and create a sales conversation?
It's logical. So to me, here's the thing. You don't want to try to be too many different things. And this is one thing that I see frequently, especially with people who are younger. They say, well, I can do this, but then I can do this totally unrelated thing. And then, and not really thinking, do these things fit together? And it doesn't mean you shouldn't do the things you love. There are things you're going to do in life that are hobbies, and there are things that are going to be your core business or the core thing that you do. And it's important to understand that distinction. I'm never going to say just because you're a musician and you like technology that you shouldn't do music anymore. You should just do technology. That's a silly way to live. Everybody should work to live and have a business to live. That's why we do what we do. And so you should be thinking about it that way. But having a logical conversation, and the best way to do it is to sit down and talk about it with somebody else. So how he went from that $10 package that he didn't really want to do and he didn't really care about. Somebody forced him to do that. That's how he got to there. And for some of you watching that, maybe that's where you are. Somebody's forcing you to watch this and you're going, I don't want to. But when you start having the conversation and you start putting it out there, you start realizing there's a logical sequence that starts to occur. You start going, all right, so when I talk to people about a website, I realize that maybe they need some images or they need some photos. Or when I start talking to people about images and photos, I might realize that we need, some music to go with that video, or we might need some animation to go with that video. Or, I realize they need multiple videos or multiple websites or multiple pages that they need. And so the conversation expands from a logical starting point. And that to me is why I like products and programs so much. Is because products and programs are a specific thing that you're teaching or training on. You're saying, this is my product that is about this, whether it's internet marketing or building a business or building a website, whatever. It's a starting point for a greater conversation. And my sales process or sequence is all about going through logical steps of saying, all right, and the best example I've ever heard of this comes from another marketing training I went through over the years. And the guy was marketing a service that was designed around how to stop biting your nails. And so somebody would they would see an ad or they would see something or somebody would tell them, hey, I noticed you bite your nails. I heard about this guy. He teaches you to stop biting your nails. Simplest model ever. And so they would go and he would have some little, book or video that he prepared. I don't remember what it was, where he would say, all right, here's 5 things you can do right now to stop biting your nails. And so then you would think, oh, that's it. That, they stop biting their nails and that's it. Well, then his marketing messages that follow up after the fact basically never changed. They were all the exact same email, essentially. And the subject line of every one of those emails was, still biting your nails? And then literally almost nothing else in the email. Hey, are you still biting your nails? Is that still going? How's that working for you? That's all it was. But he realized chances are people either didn't read the report or watch the video, or they did and they weren't sticking with it. They needed more help. And so the same thing is going to be true in whatever it is you do. Just because you show somebody a video on how to host a whitewater rafting company, that's not the same as going out and getting on the rapids and getting in the water and having people with you. It's not the same. You're probably going to need more help. The product or the service, the product or the program is a starting point for a larger conversation. Still biting your nails is the starting point for a larger conversation of saying, this is a habit you need to break. A web page is the start of a conversation about a lot of things, about your marketing and your branding and your videos and your graphics and all those things. So how you go through that phase is you say, all right, what's the core thing I do? And so you brought up whitewater rafting, technology, video, art. Doesn't matter what it is. You just got to say, this is where I'm planting my flag. This is my stake in the ground. I am a this to start. And a lot of people hate doing that. It's a hard thing. And I've coached thousands of people over the years on this, but you've got to do it. And the reason is not even just for you, But it's so that when, you know, let's say someone goes out and talks about you, and this happens all the time. Julia talks to people all the time about me, and I talk about her. When you're talking to somebody, they have to be able to say, oh, that's Julia, she does this, so that people understand what it is. So that's Julia, she helps teach teenagers and young adults about money or about how to start a business. Or that's Ken, he helps people develop their product. That's the way that you've got to have a thing that people go, oh, that's you do this. And so that way I can tell other people about you, rather than saying, oh, well, and this is how it works for a lot of people. Oh, well, I think he does that, and he does something with technology, and he does stuff like that. And then everybody's like, oh, well, that's nice. It's a differentiator. And products or services, to me, are the starting point of that. The minute you have a product or service, the minute you've got that recorded and you've got something you can send to somebody that says, oh, you want to learn more about what I do? I actually have a program that trains you on that. Even if it's 15 minutes, it doesn't have to be something huge. Still biting your nails can be the start of it. And go, hey, go watch this. Immediately you've shifted your relationship with that person. They go, wow, he really knows his stuff. Even if they watch it or not. It does. Even if there's so many people that buy stuff and don't watch it, don't read it, they just go, oh, the next time I talk to you, I'm going to know you're that person. You do this. You're an expert in this. Does that make sense about how the logical progression starts? I mean,
yeah,
I can be
other than just that very last piece of closing the door on, okay, I do this, and then you've got an experience of it. I've given you a little 15-minute sample. And then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I want it. Let me have that. So what's that last step of closing the deal?
It would be great. Here's what I offer. Would you like to pay by cash, credit, or check? I mean, normally it starts there. And I know that's a flippant way of putting it. But the hardest part for most people is actually getting up the courage to ask for money for what they do. Lots of people love to give away what they do for free. And trust me, I've done that for many years with people as well. And a lot of us just get this guilt thing or this weird energy about like, oh, if I ask for money, then there's some pressure, or the things have changed, or maybe I can't be who they want me to be, or any of those things, you know. But ask yourself this question, you know, when you go to a Starbucks in the morning, for example, and you go up and you order your coffee or you order your Frappuccino, does the cashier feel nervous about asking you to pay your $5? Do they seem to have any hesitation going, all right, just swipe your card and let's go? Chances are you just do it because it's something that you want and you do it. For the most part, that's actually how your customers or your potential audience are going to treat you. They're looking for you. They're looking to go on that whitewater trip. They're looking to get that video or that website done. They're looking for that product or service. So you've got to understand that when that energy shows up, 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with the person on the other side. They want help. They want to work with you. They're like, great, how do I start? Where do I go? And if you don't have a product or service, you don't have a program, or you're just not willing to talk to people about it, that's when you run into the challenge. And, you know, in the example that I shared, what was most important about it was the repetition and the practice of doing it for days and days at a time, and then realizing, oh, you know, I can go further with this. Some of you are going to start at a level where at the beginning you're undervaluing what you offer. You're going to say, oh, I was only bold enough to ask for $50 to start, or $100 to start, or whatever your currency is. And then you're going to go, oh, that's actually worth $1,000, or that's worth $10,000, or you're going to realize that over time. But the only way you're going to realize it is by starting the conversation and by consistency. Practice, practice, practice. It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So yeah. I wanted to talk about, you've been talking about it, but haven't called it client attraction product, or a lead generation product, something like that. So, or a lead magnet. I mean, there's many different titles for it. How do you decide which is the best kind of, and have we covered them all? I don't think we did. What about written report?
We haven't. We haven't talked about that.
So let's talk about lead magnets or attraction, client attraction things.
So the best way to think about it is to work backwards, actually. Most people try to work through a process the wrong way, which is working through it forward. And I know a lot of us go, that seems like the easiest way to do it. But for the most part, you want to think about who is the person that you want to work with. What do they want at the end of the day? The whitewater rafting guy wants someone that's going to go on a whitewater rafting tour with him. All of these other things are opportunities to create additional revenue, to let more people know about what he does and how he does it, to help people and to be better in his community. But at the end of the day, what he does is whitewater rafting, and that's what it is. So it's actually best to work backwards through your skills to get to that initial conversation, to say, all right, I know at the end of the day, how I want to work with somebody is I want to help them launch their speaking platform. I want to turn people into experts. That's what I do. And there are all sorts of pieces to that, as you mentioned. For the most part, if I walk up to somebody on the street and I say, great, I'm going to work with you for a year, and I'm going to take you through this whole process, and you're going to coach with me every week, and you're going to be in event rooms with me, and I'm going to give you all this material, and you're going to walk through all this stuff, and then I say, and that's going to be $15,000, they're going to go, ah, and they're going to be super overwhelmed. That's most people when they start that. So you have to back out of that a little bit and say, all right, how do I start to break these offers apart? So I say, in the end, that's where they're going, is the big package. That's how they're going to work with me. But there's the steps they have to take to get there. So how do they have to get there? Well, like we're talking about today, for me, if I start working backwards, I say, all right, well, if they are going to do that, they have to have something to sell. And so that's a program that's in the process. And if they don't know what to sell, they have to go through the process to figure out what they're going to talk about. And then if they don't know what they're going to talk about, I'm still walking backwards, they have to start practicing and having these conversations so that they can figure out what's the best fit for them. And if they don't know how to do that, then they're going to take a little questionnaire that tells them, all right, let's get familiar with what you like or what you're passionate about or what your hobbies are, so we can even get a starting point for that conversation. So instead of starting at the beginning and saying, I'm going to create this questionnaire, I started at the end and I worked backwards into what I'm doing. So the best types of offers are really saying, what is the core thing that your customer wants when they're starting in this process? Because chances are it isn't a long-term relationship with you, even though maybe that is, maybe they are walking around wanting that, but most customers, they want to get to know you first. They want to answer their own questions. They have their own issues going on. They have what's going on. So there's a process that you walk people through. And so you use the internet marketing terms for them of the first time somebody sees you and you walk up to them, you want to have something that's quick and simple and easy for them to go through, whether it's a short video, whether it's a small book, or some people call those ebooks or reports or checklists, something that just gives them a taste of what it is that you do to start, that just gives them a feel. That's the first thing. Those are the best types of offers to start off with. And generally, you're not going to charge anything for them. They're going to be free. They're either things you're going to give away to people when you see them, or that people are going to opt into by giving you their name or their email address online, and that they're going to get for free. And then once they've got that thing, you're going to start walking them through the larger project process that gets them through to the sale, gets them through to where you're going. So there's a process that happens there. And typically, when you're talking about pricing, there are categories of pricing. So when I first know you, chances are I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars with you. I might spend, $10 to $20 with you to start, and that's all I'm comfortable spending because I don't know you yet. And then once I know you a little bit better, then maybe I'll spend a little bit more. And then maybe I'll be willing to spend $100. Then maybe I'll be willing to spend $500, and then $5,000, and then because I'm building a relationship with you over time. But for the most part, it's about backing out and saying, what's the core thing I'm going to do, or the core area, and then I'm going to start breaking it down into pieces where people can get in at the easy level. And then, as you mentioned, the pricing, it's trying to keep it as logical as you can. That just think about what you would do as a customer for the most part, saying, if you just met somebody, chances are you're not going to spend thousands of dollars with them right off the bat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And something else occurred to me, like we're talking about the whitewater rafting. Mm-hmm. So to me, because that, I've done a lot of things outdoors, but whitewater rafting isn't something that I've really done. So if I was going to take a whitewater rafting trip, my question would be, does this person know safety, and how much concentration do they put on that? So what would be something they could give away, like, the biggest mistake that most whitewater rafters make? Or, how do they create something that would tell people, you want to choose me because I'll make sure you're safe?
That's exactly right. So I'd be thinking of, you're thinking in the right spot because you've been doing this a long time, which is really saying, what is the concern of the customer? And we're bringing up this real world scenario. I can think of a few, and this is something you go through. Safety is obviously one of them. There's going to be a group of people that literally just don't know what to do. They know nothing about whitewater rafting. What you need to know if you know literally nothing about whitewater rafting. Then there are going to be some people that are drawn to it because they're interested in similar things. So they might say, I've been parasailing, but I've never been whitewater rafting. I want to know what the difference is. And so if I'm the whitewater rafting guy, I'm trying to think of these avenues and these conversations I've had with people that says, how did they decide they ever wanted to go whitewater rafting? Before they even picked me, before they even worried about my company or whether I existed, what were they thinking? So those are 3 really good starting points that you could create some really basic conversation around. 5 to 10 minute little videos on your cell phone, that could be, here's what you need to know about safety when you're whitewater rafting, or here's the difference between parasailing and whitewater rafting, or here's where you start if you know nothing about whitewater rafting, and here's what you're going to experience. Those are 3 very distinct conversations because you're imagining having those with 3 very different people who are in different places coming in, but they're all going to the same place. So that is the key to product development or to internet marketing, which is really saying different conversations with different people to start, different groups of people to start. And so you could probably, for those of you watching, could probably come up with even more conversations that people would have before they were even thinking about getting on the raft and going through the rapids, about what it is that they're thinking about or what it is that they're wanting. And if you don't know it all, or you feel like you have no idea, the best way to do it is to go to Google. And I tell people this all the time. Go to Google and Google like you are Googling yourself, like your own company, your own product, your own service. Go and look for yourself like you were trying to buy you, and see what other types of things exist and what other conversations there are. You will get a million ideas just from doing that of what the types of conversations are that you can have.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also that you hit on the importance of knowing your audience. Mm-hmm. And why it's so important to niche down as much as possible. And if you're going to do whitewater rafting, I love this example because there's so many things to consider. So say you wanted to take older people on a trip. You love your grandparents and you just want older people to have this really awesome experience. So safety would be paramount to an older person. And that's why you would want to address it from that standpoint. But if you're working with the millennials, they're about adventure. They're about having these great experiences. And so whatever you put, safety isn't like their first issue. Right. And so you have to know who it is you're talking to. Who are you inviting on these trips? And that's not to say that you can't work with all these different groups. But your marketing has to be specific to the particular group you're trying to bring on this particular trip.
That's correct. Right? And it's the same with your products and programs. That's the best part about products and programs is you do them once, or sometimes you do them a couple times if you update them, but you do them once and then they're there forever. So if I create the whitewater, the Adventurous Millennials Guide to Whitewater Rafting, which that's a terrible name, but let's say that that's what it was. And then I have, the guide to 50 plus whitewater rafting, or, how to survive whitewater rafting with a group of 50 plus or whatever. Once I've created those things, they exist forever. I can continue to use those as long as I want. And the best part is that investment of time can pay off again and again and again. It's why I love this format of training, of video programs, of audio programs, of written material, because you just can go back to it over and over. In fact, when I was developing my platform, that was exactly what started it for me. I said, look, I've been training for 10 years, mostly in live rooms, so not a ton of recording of this stuff that was usable, but I've developed all of these programs over the years, and I just realized there was no one place where everyone could just go get them. And so I wanted everybody to be able to go through anything that they wanted of all of these trainings that I'd done over the years. And this will happen to all of you out there, the same as what's happening with you guys, of you have all of this information that some people are going to be interested in a little piece and some people are going to be interested in all of it. And so the second you start developing courses, products, training, programs, those types of things, they're things you can use forever. to go back to continue to get people into your business or to continue to get people to know you. And I know some people even who have turned, developing these types of programs and products into their entire business. They started as something else. Maybe they started as a coach, and then they're like, I do so well with my training programs, I don't have to coach anymore, or I only coach if I want to. Or some people who do a service and then they become the experts in teaching that service. That happens in so many different industries. One of the biggest ones is real estate. People that become very successful in real estate tend to become trainers and train other people and other agencies, and they don't do as much real estate once they get really successful in doing what they're doing. Same thing happens in education. And this is not true of all people, but a lot of the people that are the top performing teachers or educators become administrators and principals and superintendents and people that are running the schools themselves as opposed to doing as much as what they did. So any type of product or program can be that for any business, of something that you can go back to time and time again to use for marketing, to use to generate revenue, to use for all sorts of different purposes.
Yeah, that's great. I have one other question I'd like to explore a little.
Sure.
And that, what would your thought process be when deciding what form your product should take? Like, should it be a report? Should it be a checklist? Should it be a video? How do you decide what is the best form to put that in?
This is one of my favorite topics. And to me, I will say I have my opinion answer, and then I will give a more general answer. So my opinion answer is everything should start as video. That's my opinion answer. If you can do video, and most of us can with our cell phones these days, video is where you want to start. And the reason I say that is because of repurposing or content repurposing. And so the idea is, for every hour of my time that I spend in creation, of creating products or training or programs, I want to get as much out of that hour as I can. If I'm creating a video, I can repurpose that video in many different ways. So I can take the video and use the video itself, and that's just a video. I can take the audio from the video and just use the audio. So then I have a video and an audio that I can be promoting. Then I can take that audio and I can go get it transcribed, or I can have someone type it all out. And then I have a report, an audio, and a video that I can use. And if I break that transcription down into multiple little articles and things like that, 1 hour of me doing a video or me doing a training or something like that can become 15 to 20 different pieces of content that I can use all over, that I can use on my blog, that I can use on other people's websites, that I can use on YouTube, that I can use on iTunes, that I can use wherever. So to me, the easiest way is, if you can get comfortable on video, then that is the best place to start. Now, if that's not you, that's fine. And that's why I say there is a more general answer of, there are plenty of people who just don't like video and they're just not going to do it. And that's totally fine. Start with what you like the most. And to me, I think in this order, it's video if you can do video, audio if you don't like video but you're comfortable talking, or if you're a writer, just do the written, and then find other people or other teammates who like doing the video or audio so that they can use your written material as a base for what they're doing. But the idea being that the format, I like to have multiple formats, because my customers are going to be very different. I'll have some that want to read and some that want to watch videos, and a lot of times those two don't mix at all. And so I can have the same content in different forms of media, which is absolutely critical to the success of this process, that you want to have both. So I think it's actually important that you have written content, audio content, and video content. And so the best way to get it done, the easiest, is to start with video and work backwards from there. And then that way you can develop it essentially all at once. So same thing, that's why I love interviews like this. You take this interview, you get it transcribed, you could break it down into articles. You could break it down into other material that we can use. You could pull just one of these questions and not watch the whole video and send just that question to somebody. And that's another piece of content that you can use again and again and again. So you can get tons of repurposing value out of video. So I highly recommend it if that's what you can do.
I like that. So it's looking at, this is what I've done. Now, how many ways can I use this?
Right. Exactly right.
Simple process.
Yep.
So is there anything else we should know about product creation that we haven't thought to ask you yet?
I think we've covered the full gamut. I think the big thing from here is just make a commitment to get started. So your first products or the first things that you do are not going to be your best, and that doesn't matter. Let's just get that clear. It doesn't matter if the first things you produce are your best, or even the 10th things you produced are your best. The fact that you do it in the first place is already making a difference for you and for your life and for your business. The fact that you have something to show people when they say, hey, what do? You say, great, you can go watch this interview, or you can watch this program or this product I created, or you can read this thing I did. It just creates a difference in the mind of the people that you're talking to. And so, the important part is just to start and to do this as consistently as you can. Follow the model that we were talking about in that workshop. Your goal from watching this video should be like, all right, if I have something in mind that I know I'm really good at and I know I'm an expert at, I'm going to start teaching about it, in the next couple days. Don't wait around. Grab your phone, come up with a little bit, just a few little bullet points of what you're going to say, and start trying things out and working it out. I tend to find, and at least this is true for me, that the more I work on something and practice it and refine it, even if it doesn't start off perfect, it gets better and better each time I either deliver it again or I adjust and I come back. And so, the most important thing out of all of this is you've got to start. And for most of you out there, you have phones or you have technology. You're watching this on technology at this point. Start by sharing, what do you know? And how can you start to take what you know to other people? That's the key.
That is the key. And that is one of our mantras, is just don't go for perfection, go for completion. Just do it. Just do it and don't worry about it. Get it out there. And then the more you do it, it gets better and better till you're really comfortable with it. And then It doesn't really matter if it's nobody cares anymore if it's perfect or not.
No.
Nobody cares.
People care more if it's real, like you brought up. People care more if it's real, and I know that it's a person on the other side that I can have a relationship with, and that is what matters more than anything. I think authenticity is really critical in this process as well.
Yeah. So Donovan, do you have any last questions for Ken?
Oh.
Yeah, I think this dovetails perfectly, so this is a great example, Ken. So what do we have here?
So this is Your Momentum Now. So as you mentioned, I'm passionate about helping people get their products done and get their services done. And in particular, I love to work with people that are going to be speakers or coaches or experts who want to work with people in that space. So my community really focuses on exactly what we mentioned, of taking all of the heavy lifting away from people that want to do webinars or want to develop products. So my platform features experts in all sorts of different spaces. In fact, you're scrolling through them right now. We feature other experts on my platform. So I do all the technology work. I help people host the webinar. And for a lot of people who have never done this before, I even interview them to help them get familiar with the content and how it works. And we are up to over 20 experts on the platform now that talk about all sorts of different areas, from digital marketing to business development to getting booked as a speaker. Kim right there is amazing, talks about organization and clutter. We have people that talk about how to do television and radio appearances, how to be a better person and a better leader and be more inspiring, how to get your book published. So when I went out and started telling people, hey, I want to feature other experts, and then, oh, look at that one. We're familiar with Julia, who teaches young people how to be entrepreneurs. But really, the goal for me was to say, look, I realize the biggest barrier for most people, once they know their idea and they've got their idea and they're ready to start delivering it, is that technology conversation. And so we host all the technology and really provide the platform where you can just show up and speak and show up and share your expertise and be a part of a community that will give you feedback, that will help you get better, that will help you understand, different ways that you can take products or programs to market. And so again, yeah, we have a free level of the community that's available, so you can get familiar with the types of programs and products that are out there, and you can do it totally free and get the idea of what are some of the different ways people train. And there couldn't be, as you were scrolling through that list, I was laughing to myself because there couldn't be a more diverse range of trainers than we already have and that we're already bringing in, of people who are funny or people who are serious or people who are charming or people who are young, people who are older. Like, we have it all. Like, our youngest experts on the platform, I think, are 22 or 23 at this point. And so there's no excuse, whether you're starting late or whether you have no idea what you're doing. And so again, that's what we specialize in. So if you liked what you heard here and you're like, all right, now I'm ready to do it, walk me through the steps to get it done, or I want to be able to show it to somebody, that's exactly what we do with the community. And so that link is going to be right next to this video. So make sure that you click that and check out what we do there, and you can get an idea of what these products and programs actually look like. I highly recommend the interview that we did with Julia on the platform. Since you already know her, you can watch the tables turned a little bit with me being the interviewer and her being the one that's training. And her interview was really about doing things that you love in your life, picking your passion, and understanding that you want to follow the path of what matters the most to you. We talked about that a lot in this call too. But we did a great session on that in the community, and there are many, many, many more to come. So
great. Thank you, Ken. I can't really thank you enough for being here today. It was a great interview. You gave us some really fabulous information.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I know I'll be involved in many other ways with the platform here. Anybody feel free to reach out to me. I'll be helping you guys obviously develop it, but also teaching in that as well. So I'm hoping to be a core part of this going forward for a lot of you out there who have questions or just want to get started.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Okay.